नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, chapter number 23 and text number 3. This is the explanation of Shishumar planetary system. यथा मेडी स्तंभ आक्रमण पशवः संयोजितास्त्रिभीर स्त्रिभीर सवनै अर्थास्थानं मंडलानि चरन्त्येव भगणा ग्रहादय एतस्मिन् अंतर्बहिर्योगेन कालचक्र आयोजिता ध्रुवे मा अवलंब्य वायोनिर्दीर्णमाणा आकल्पान्तं परिचंक्रमन्ति नभसि यथा मेधाः सेनादयो वायुवशाः कर्मसारथयः परिवर्तन्ते एवं ज्योतिर्गणाः प्रकृति पुरुष संयोगानुगृहीता कर्म निर्मित गतयोः भुवि न पतन्ति। We go to translation. It's a long purport also, so please bear with me. When bulls are yoked together and tied to a central post to thresh rice, they thread around that pivot without deviating from their proper positions. One bull being closest to the post, another in the middle, and the third on the outside. Similarly, all the planets and all the hundreds and thousands of stars revolve around the pole star, the planet of Dhruv Maharaj, in their respective orbits, some higher and some lower, fastened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the machine of material nature according to the results of their fruitive acts. They are driven around the pole star by the wind and will continue to be so until the end of creation. These planets float in their air within the vast sky, just as clouds with hundreds of tons of water float in the air as the great Siena eagles due to the results of their past activities, flying high in the sky and have no chance of falling to the ground. These are the descriptions of this planetary system circumambulating around planet of Dhruv Maharaj, the Dhruv Loka. And comparison is very, very appropriate. There is a long purport. Please hear carefully. According to the description of this verse, the hundreds and thousands of stars and the great planets such as the Sun, the Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter are not clustered together because of law of gravity or any similar idea of the modern scientists. These planets and stars are all servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda or Krishna. And according to his order, they sit in their chariots and travel in their respective orbits. The orbits in which they move are compared to the machine given by material nature and to the operating deities of the stars and planets who carry out the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revolving around Dhruvaloka, which is occupied by the great devotee Dhruv Maharaj. This is confirmed in Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 52nd verse as follows. Yachakshure sasavita sakalagrahanam raja samastamurati shashashi shateja yasyagyaya pramati sambrita kala chakro govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose control even the sun, which is considered to be the eye of the Lord, rotates within the fixed orbit of an eternal time. The sun is the king of all planetary system and has unlimited potency in the heat and light. This verse from Brahma Samhita confirms that even the largest amongst the powerful planet, the sun, rotates within a fixed orbit or Kala Chakra in obedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has nothing to do with gravity or any other imaginary laws created by material scientists. Material scientists want to avoid the ruling government of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they imagine different conditions under which they suppose the planets move. The only condition, however, is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All the various predominant deities of the planets are persons. All the various predominant deities of the planets and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also a person. The Supreme Personality orders the subordinate persons, the demigods and the various names. They carry out His will, which is supreme. This fact is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter 10th verse, wherein Krishna says, Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunte Jagadvi Parivartate. This material nature is working under my direction of son of Kunti and is producing all moving and non-moving beings. By its rule, the manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The orbits of the planets resemble the bodies in which the living entities are seated because they are both machine called by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter 61st verse, Ishvara sarva bhutanam raddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani jantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on a machine made up of material energy. The machine given by the material nature, whether the machine of the body or the machine of the orbit of the Kala Chakra, works according to the order given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the material nature, works together to maintain this great universe, and not only this universe, but also the millions of other universes beyond this one. The question of how the planets and stars are floating is also answered in this verse. It is not because of the law of gravity. Rather, the planets and stars are enabled to float by manipulation of the air. It is due to such manipulation that big heavy loads float and big eagles fly in the sky. Modern airplanes like the 747 aircraft work in a similar way. By controlling the air, they float high in the sky, resisting the tendency to fall to earth. Such adjustments of the air are all made possible by cooperation of the principles of Purusha, that is male, and Prakriti, female. By the cooperation of the material nature, which is considered to be Prakriti, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is considered the Purusha, all the affairs of the universes are going on nicely in their proper order. Prakriti, material nature, is also described in Brahma Samhita 5th chapter 44th verse as follows. Shashti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti rekaschaye vayasya bhavanani bibarti durga. Ichhanu rupam api yasya chestate sa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The external potency Maya, who is the nature of the shadow of Chit, spiritual potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, and creating, preserving and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Material nature, the external energy of the Supreme Lord, is also known as Durga, or female energy that protects the great fort of this universe. The word Durga also means fort. This universe is just like a great fort in which all the conditioned souls are kept, and they cannot leave it unless they are liberated by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself declares in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 9th verse, Janma karma cha me vidivyam evam vetyo tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanmana iti mameti soarjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Thus simply by Krishna consciousness, by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can be delivered, or in other words, one can be released from the great fort of this universe and go outside it to the spiritual world. It is also significant that the predominant deities of even the greatest planet have been offered their exalted post because of the very valuable pious activities they perform in previous births. This is indicated herein by the words karma nirmitta gatayaha. For example, if we have previously discussed, the moon is called Jiva, which means that he is a living entity like us. But because of his pious activities, he has been appointed to his post as the moon god. Similarly, all the demigods are living entities who have been appointed to their various posts as the masters of the moon, the earth, the Venus, and so on, because of their great service and pious acts. Only the predominant deity of the sun, Surya Narayan, is the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj Dhruva, the predominant deity of Dhruvaloka, is also a living entity. Thus, there are two kinds of entities, the Supreme Entity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the ordinary living entity, the Jiva, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. All the demigods are engaged in the service of the Lord, and only by such an arrangement are affairs of universe going on. Regarding the great eagles mentioned in this verse, it is understood that there are eagles so big that they can prey on big elephants. They fly so high that they can travel from one planet to another. They start flying in one planet and land in another. And while in flight, they lay eggs that hatch into other birds while falling through the air. In Sanskrit, such eagles are called Siena. Under the present circumstances, of course, we cannot see such huge birds, but at least we know of eagles that can capture monkeys and then throw them down to kill and eat them. Similarly, it is understood that there are gigantic birds that can carry off elephants, kill them, and eat them. The two examples of the eagle and the cloud are sufficient to prove that the flying and floating can be made possible through the adjustments of air. The planets, in a similar way, are floating because the material nature adjusts the air according to the orders of the Supreme Lord. It could be said that this adjustment constitutes the law of gravity, but in any case, one must accept that the laws are made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The so-called scientists have no control over them. The scientists can falsely, improperly declare that there is no God, but this is not a fact. Om Ajnanaatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshulmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। This is very important verse in demonstrating the ultimate cause of all causes in this material world, that under whose order everything is moving. Both char and achar. Char are the living entities and achars are stationary objects. But every one is termed here is at par as living entity. We understand what is living and what is non-living, but regardless, when living entities are situated in non-living entities, means non-living objects, it's possible. Then there should not be any surprise. But the idea here is that everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one is able to defer or violate the laws set in by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada cites so many examples that prove ultimate cause of all causes is Lord Krishna, and he is directly as well as indirectly responsible. Directly as well as indirectly responsible. That is also said in the first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra. Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo trisargo amrusha dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is the absolute truth, who is the cause of all causes. He is situated in his own abode, and yet he is executing all the orders, so in turn everyone obeys. Man is competitor, he violates, but he has to pay. Why? Because he misuses the opportunity of utilizing the energy he has been given to serve the Lord. Instead, he wants to utilize for his sense gratification out of envy to the Lord. So therefore, he is also subjected. Here, the activities of the planets, activities of the living entities, and everything is conducted unto through the agency of karma. But we know, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. The energy of the performing all this activity is coming from Brahman, the sum total of the creation by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarvamidam khalvam Brahma. So, karma is generated, or the energy of performing anybody's activity, whether he is a small living entity unseen through the eyes, or he is in a unit called body, or unit called society, or unit called a nation, or unit called a planet, or a universe, or even the multitude of universes. Everyone is directly connected by the order. If you willfully violate, then there is a reaction. But nobody can violate. So in one way, when everything is created within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we will know that what divine nature that Supreme Person has. Yad gyatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava. Etanya bhutanya sheshani drakshas atmanyatho mayi. We think that we are away from the jurisdiction of the Lord because we don't see through our limited blunt senses. We don't perceive Him. We don't have knowledge. We forgot even about ourselves of what to speak of knowing Him. But nonetheless, ultimate, that within this existence we have to obey the law of karma. But pure devotional service can absolve all our karmas. Karmani nirdahanti kintu cha bhakti bhajam. That is also the law of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it is private and He keeps for Himself and His attached devotees and nobody else. Nobody has an access to it. So therefore, devotees have guaranteed of salvation. They understand and they obey by voluntary tolerance. They obey. They do not want to go out of the jurisdiction of the Lord. By mistake or by previous habit, if they do, they will beg forgiveness and chant the holy name to absolve those sins. It doesn't mean that they are given guarantee to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. No. But nonetheless, they are afforded chance to come out from the fortress of this material nature. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. Srila Prabhupada is explaining the whole material nature is Durga. It's a jail. And Durga, she is the custodian. From her, her different natures are expanded like Ambika, Annapurna, Katyayini, so many features. But they afford to give chance for our progress in spiritual realization. They are not directly connected, but they afford us to behave properly and accept the knowledgeability of the absolute truth properly under bona fide guidance. Everyone is working under the order. Even the demigods, they can't flaunt the laws of nature. They are faithful. So, this description is not what according to the material scientists, even though they are baffled in their limited knowledge of material science, they try to laugh it out as the trickles of honey that forms the lakes of honey or the oceans of milk and honey. And they laugh it out. But they don't understand these all substances have their natural origin. If we call Sweta Dvipa, which is surrounded by ocean of milk. Why? Oh, because there are many surbis or kamadhenus automatically giving milk and flooding the whole atmosphere there. There are so many examples boldly spoken by Sukadeva Goswami in this explanation, that there are birds so giant that they just lift up elephants and fly up in the air and then throw them on the ground and smash them so they can feast on it. Material scientists are starting to find out such giant birds of the dinosaur era. They are so giant. They could have easily done our tiny elephant. So what is wrong then? And they are giving various names as if nobody knew. But what is in a name? It's simply an indication of the wonderful nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is simply propelled by those desires and karma. Karmana daiva netrena jantu deha utpatati. Jantu means this insignificant living entity who is simply motivated by his desires, ends up in particular karma, and then creates a species of life. How much clever Brahma would be to create 8.4 million species of life, and today the material scientists can count only hardly 2 million, not 8.4. So they have no conception. So I think they are laughing at themselves with their limited fund of knowledge, because they cannot. And what to speak of universes? The universes are expanding beyond their imagination. Recently, this Hubble spacecraft took up a photograph of our Milky Way, in which our planet Earth is there, and the whole the orbiting system of the our material universe is there, where the sun is the brightest star. But they found out that there is a brighter star than the sun, which is more than 150-fold brighter than our sun. They found out because of photography. There are so many situations there they cannot be even possibly imagined by the cluster of scientists. They will strike with each other by controversies. But this creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead obeys the command so perfectly that Yachakshuresa Savita Sakala Grahanam. Sakala means sum total of all the planetary system. If the sun is Raja Samasta Murti Shashesha Teja, they are so bright as the king of all other planets. They are not that bright, they are not effulgent, but the sun is given so much heat and light, so much energy. Recently, they blame this over 2,200 deaths in Telangana and Hyderabad, Andhra, due to a sun flare that happened a few months ago. And it was radiating a greater deal of the radiation, which heated up the western states of India, Gujarat, but it ended up concentrating in Telangana and Hyderabad, the Andhra area. And people are dying. They can't tolerate even little more radiation. What to speak? So the idea is that they may make a Super Hadron Collider or this or that in science and make a big breakthrough. But when they explain what is the ultimate aim of such scientific experiments, they say, will be able to know something more. At billions of dollars expenditure, they don't give opportunity for people to become Krishna conscious. Rather, they want to destroy them under the pretense of making a better life. It's a distraction. So man is violator, and he pays through his karma. So there is a collective karma for the state, collective karma for the societies, collective karma for the nation even. And what to speak of planet? Because everybody is a living entity and everybody is conducted through the working energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If there is, say, this is a well-known fact in the scientific world, that when the aerosols started in America in late 60s to early 70s and 80s, then they have to make a ban. Because the aerosol has fluorocarbon gas that penetrates all the layers of air and start chewing up the ozone layer. So when the ozone layer, it makes a big hole in the atmosphere. So the sun rays become so prominent, so strong, that it creates change in the atmosphere. So many different kinds of effects started coming. El Nino, greenhouse effect, so many effects. It is nothing but destructing. Even the living entities are coming with different strain of mutations because of such change. And at little instance, some birds are affected by the flu, different kinds of, and people eat and people die. They find out that what is happening because it's happening against man's will. It's a reaction. Reaction is the result of karma that is flaunting the laws of material nature. Why there is a reaction? Because nobody can violate the orders set in by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Hetu nanena kaunteya jagatvi parivartate. Besides me, Lord Krishna, there is no other cause that is responsible why this material nature is revolving. Why we have ups and downs, why there are days and nights, why there is creation and destructions. These are all chakravat parivartante, sukhani cha dukhani cha. So rest assured, it is all material in nature under the jurisdiction of the laws of Supreme Personality of God. As such, Krishna does not indulge in the workings of nature. He reserves the right to become partial only to the devotees. Otherwise, for him, whatever he does, even karma does not affect. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phalespraha itiyo mam abhijanati karma bhirapi na badyate. Krishna says, my performance of activities are completely different because there is no yielding of the result which is going to be bound to. It is not a binding factor. This is a trick, and it puts us to the divinity aspect. That otherwise we are subjugated to the laws and stringent laws of material nature, not ordinary laws. They are much more powerful. So what to speak of this gravity? Newton was sitting under an apple tree and one ripened apple fell on his head. and knocked out his intelligence. And he thought something, aha, this is the law of gravity. If law of gravity is working, then why the planets are not clustered and colliding and destroying themselves, each other? They are worrying about little asteroids. They come, the falling stars, or what they call the fragments of passing comet. It is going to destroy the humanity. They could not predict where it is going to strike. But when it strikes, the amount of the force is there, it is going to destroy. But now, it disintegrates before it hits the earth. Because the earth atmosphere burns it up to smaller fragments, so it cannot make. So whose mercy is that? And men cannot create even such a gigantic fragment and then send somewhere to Russia even to strike. They make little, what you call, intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. No. It is simply toy in the hand of a child. Child gets hurt by the same toy. So Krishna thinks, let them play. They will get hurt themselves. So the idea is that Dhruva planet, where Dhruva Maharaj is the controlling deity. He is a living entity. And all the planetary systems are revolving on that axis as if the bull is attached to a grinding motor and has to turn round and round and round on that pivot. Everyone is moving on the pivot of pole star. Pivot of the pole star. This system is called Shishumar system. Later it will come. And in previous verses it is explained that now it will come in the preceding verses that it is like a coil of a snake around that pivot, and that is Kundalini, original. But then it is distributed in our body also. In everywhere, the material energy, and that Kundalini Shakti is not spiritual, it is material, because it is working under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People doing Kundalini Yoga, they cannot come to the platform of spirituality concept. Spiritual concept is not there. They come up to the controlling and only up to the Dhruva Loka. That is Brahma Loka, it's still material world. So, in older times, even oil was manufactured, cooking oil. In India we have seen, and there are still many home industry keep a bull with tied up with a transverse pole that is attached to a perpendicular pole, and the stone is tied up in a mortar. They put oily seeds, so let the bull go. And the bull is blindfolded because he doesn't need direction. Simply it will be pulled around and round and round, and meanwhile the grinding stone will go in and make seeds, oil seeds, compressed and make oil. Release oil from the seed. It is such a heavy job, but the bulls are foolish. So, under the foolishness of repeated work, we are doing the same thing in every life. Same thing, chewing the chewed. Repeating, blindfolded. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. You don't need education for that. Anybody can do this. So that is the animal life. And man violates that too. He wants to execute eating, sleeping, mating, and defending without any restrictions. He doesn't want to become responsible for the consequences of his karma. He wants to escape the results of his karma. No, nobody can flaunt. There is equal and opposite reaction. Equal and opposite reaction. So, all these principles that have been described, the ultimate responsibility Lord Krishna himself takes, and everything is attached to him. Nobody can remove him even by mistake or misunderstanding or out of a well-planned attack on him to kill him. Nobody can do. And yet we can see under the religious guise these attempts have been going on. So rest assured, the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam are spelling out very, very affirmatively, because it affords us to see through Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam. Krishna comes, appears, and his activity, his appearance and activities are divine. They are not binding to him because he is the creator of all systems that we are given chance. This system is nonetheless opposite of him. Material nature is opposite of spiritual nature. Prabhupada explains that. So, in opposite nature, he himself comes as predominant deities like Surya Narayan. He is an incarnation. But the rest are living entities. He talks of moon. Because of pious activities, the moon god became in charge. And who is that moon god? It's called Soma. He was the son of Brahma, born of Atri and Anasuya. So he becomes predominant deity of Soma. Nonetheless, there are also incidents describing the fallibility of this living entity. Soma becomes proud. And Lord Shiva has to come and remove his pride. He captured him and put him in his hair, tied up. It's called Chandramauli. So, Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance. He is the incarnation for controlling the mode of ignorance. He is not in mode of ignorance, but he is the controlling deity. And he has been a transformation of Lord Vishnu to perform this duty. Because false ego is generated from this mode of ignorance. And one has to get it smashed. One has to get it smashed. So, divinity is there, and the stringent laws of material nature are there. So option is with us. The choice is there. The choice is coming through the agency of karma. Good karma can allow us to promote ourselves, but karma, even though it is good or bad, but somehow or another performed for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, becomes an asset to enter into the divine realm. There, whether the karma is good or bad, it is not considered. It doesn't mean that people have liberty to choose the bad karmas for the pleasure of the Lord. Can't make an excuse. It should be under the direct order. Killing of his kinsman was the direct order by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, and that became a devotional service. The karmani nirdahanti kintu cha bhakti bhajam, unless and until Krishna is involved in it. Then and then our activity will not bind us. So, thank you very much. Anybody has any question or comments? Okay. If they have learned how to tolerate the reaction of the bad karma, thanking Krishna, then they are candidates for liberation. Then their bhakti will be unimpeded. But have we ever learned to tolerate even pleasure? Miseries we are told, we are forced to tolerate. But have we ever tolerated the happiness that comes on its way? Krishna says that Dukkheshu anudvigamana sukkheshu vigataspruha. This is the art of tolerating both temporary feelings of material happiness and distress. Then he is steadfast. Then he can perform bhakti without any interference. Otherwise, if we see, oh, devotees are suffering, material bodies are suffering, devotees are not suffering. And devotees who know that he is not this body, then he will learn the art of tolerating. Tanti tikshva bharata. Because of their coming and going nature. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshana sukha dukkhada agama upayina anityam stam stitikshvat bharata. They are temporary. Simply tolerate. Sita ushana, sukh and dukkhada. Sukh and dukh are the results of the reactions. But nonetheless, they have to be tolerated. Now, what does it mean by toleration? Oh, we want to enjoy the sukh part of it. Means we want to mess it up, our life further. Rather, Don't be enamored. Remain contained. Share it for the